countries. Then I would like to move to the key findings. Why we choose these three countries? To give you the general idea of these three countries, of these three countries, first I would like to highlight the Cambodia. For Cambodia in 2010, it has around 4 million tons rice supply. So it's coming in a big way to rice export market. That means what happens in Cambodia not only have the impact within the country, either to meet the food security or to contribute to the poverty reduction, but also they will have global impact. Then for those three countries, we choose them once we try to cover different ecosystems, not only for rain-fed but also for irrigated. Cambodia is more like rain-fed, and as I mentioned earlier, it's an increasing export country. So it's just in a way, but compared to Cambodia, Pakistan is known for its rice export. It's one of the main rice export countries, especially for the high-quality rice basmati. But for these three countries, Cambodia and Pakistan, they are with a low yield. So you can say that Cambodia and Pakistan, the yield still are lower than 3 tons per hectare on average. But Sri Lanka is 4 tons per hectare. It's the high yield country. But Sri Lanka, in the last decades, it's different. It's only self-sufficient country. So in Sri Lanka, there's very few rice trees in the last decades. They most like 90% of the domestic supply is used for the food consumption. This is the yield trends in the last decade. You can say all the three countries, the yield trees continuously grow. And especially for Sri Lanka, Pakistan also growing, but you can say Cambodia is growing faster. But for these three countries, even though they keep growing, but still there are a lot of variation or fluctuation. So to give the idea is those kind of yield trends have a lot to do with agronomic conditions, or also with the improved varieties at our observation. So in terms of the poverty, these three countries are the poor countries. You can see, especially Cambodia. Even though Cambodia, for the number of rural poor people, is only 4 million in one country, but if you look at the rural poverty, over 1/3 of the people in the rural area, they are poor, so they are lower than the $1.25 per day. And Pakistan, even though Pakistan, the poverty ratio is lower, but it has a much bigger population. So if you look at the people population, Pakistan may have a bigger in fact. But within the country, if you look at the poverty ratio, then Cambodia is in a much worse situation. So that's the general background for those three countries. Now I've moved to the farmer level analysis. In the last 2 years and a half, we started survey since 2010, and some of them finished in 2011. So basically, our database in 2009 and 2010. In total, we have more than 1,200 households interviewed in the three countries. And we try to cover not only stress-prone area, but first we cover the key rice production area. And then, based on that, we also try to select those areas with stress-prone. So that's for the three countries, we try to cover the three major abiotics: stress, drought, submergence, and salinity. Now, this is the characteristics of those farm households. You can see the farm size ranging from 1.2 to 5.5. Pakistan looks like it has a larger farm size, but Pakistan's situation is over 40% of the farmers, they're still lower than 2 hectares per household. So if you look at all these farm size, most farmers, they're still very small farmers. They're not with large area. But also the yield. The rice yield in Cambodia is almost close to the national level, but Sri Lanka is much lower in those stress-prone areas compared to the average, to the national level. For Pakistan, Pakistan is famous for basmati. We know basmati is with low yield because it's traditional one. But since our purpose is to introduce the GSR in developed under GSR project. So we try to cover those areas with more IRRI activities. So in those areas, there are more IRRI varieties adopted. So the yield actually is higher than the average level. And also you can say the rice income in Cambodia is much higher than Sri Lanka and Pakistan. So rice farmers in Cambodia depend more on rice in Cambodia. And also Cambodia is more rain-fed. Then for those major varieties grown in these countries, we find that this Cambodia, the top two is 504 and IRRI-66, and then they account around 1/3 of the total variety of the total rice area. And the Pakistan only IRRI-66, then you can say it's more than half. And the Sri Lanka is BT362. Here I would like to draw your attention to here, the released year. The first top varieties, the most popular varieties, they mostly just released before 1990. So some of the 1971, some of the 1987. So the varieties are still quite old. Because for in Pakistan and Sri Lanka, for those areas we choose, they have very few traditional varieties. In Sri Lanka, that's the national situation. Sri Lanka actually over 98% of the rice area are grown for improved variety, very few traditional. And in Pakistan, in our survey, also very few, just only around 10% are with the basmati. So that's to see that Cambodia, the farmers in Cambodia choose more diverse adoption behavior. And we want to understand farmers' behavior, then we did a little bit more study for Cambodia. To understand rice farmers in Cambodia, the adoption behavior, normally we'll have two indicators, the incidence of adoption and the intensity of adoption. For other audience, to give a little bit background, incidence of adoption is how many farmers, or given amount of farmers, how many of them adopt improved variety. And intensity is in terms of the area. So we use probit and probit to analyze those behavior. Then in Cambodia, there are three category varieties actually. They have traditional variety, so that's completely traditional. But they also have improved traditional variety. Those varieties, they just developed through pure line selection, but they're still traditional varieties. So in the analysis, we combine those TV and ITV as traditional varieties. For modern varieties, that's the improved one. Through the literature review, our observation and descriptive analysis will assume that this farmers' variation, the behavior adoption variation could be influenced by the demographic characteristics, land holdings, access to market or access to variety, the cropping pattern, and the location. These are those variables we use to explain farmers' behavior and include the domestic and the farmers' land holdings and also their locations. Here, I would like to see we have the location variable here. Then for those adopters and non-adopters, you see from the demographic characteristics, household size, labor, and the respondent farming dummy are quite similar with each other. We have respondent dummy because in the survey, we request the emulators to interview those who manage farming. So the respondent may not be the household head, but should be the person who manages rice farming. And the most significant difference are in those land resource, these land holdings. So maybe the land holdings is one of the important factors. This is the regression result. So for the topic and the probit, with both for the either whether farmer adopted or not, or to what kind of extent farmer grew the rice variety, the farm size and the share of lower land and also irrigated land, they have the significant effect. And I'd like to mention more on the regional dumbing. In Cambodia, we have 6 provinces. 3 of them in the South Cambodia border to Vietnam, 2 of them in the northwest border to Thailand, and 1 of them in the central part. So these 3 provinces, they have different locations, but also because those rice farmers in Cambodia, they are market oriented. So the market this dummy, region dummy can somehow show the effect of the market influence. And not only significance, but also through the coefficient. The coefficient can show the effect, whether it's bigger or it's smaller. So you can see the region dummy is more important compared to, is much bigger compared to other factors. Then to give the summary for the key results of the varietal adoption. First, the adoption of improved varieties is generally high. So many farmers want to amount of the area grow improved variety. But the variety is very old, generally old actually, more than 20 years already. So that compared to the national level, the variety in our survey actually is older, or the average age is older. And also the yield is quite low. But on the other hand, even though they are quite old, but it's just 1 or 2 major varieties, they account for large areas. So we call this kind of varieties like mega varieties. Now, how farmers benefit from rice farming? So this can give you the general idea. See, then we can find out that Cambodia, Pakistan is the country with highest income, but also the highest net return. If we only compare the net return by US dollar per hectare, the unit. Then, but in Sri Lanka, even though the cash cost is lower than Pakistan, but in Sri Lanka, one of the important input, chemical fertilizer, is 95% subsidized by the government. So this also somehow biased to this net return. Then, even also, if we calculate the percentage of the net return compared to that one, then Sri Lanka may not be the highest one also. And for those 3 countries, actually, the price is not very from each other. Sri Lanka is much higher than Cambodia. In Sri Lanka, the rice price on average is around 280 US dollar per ton, but in Cambodia it's only around 230. So let's see what's the structure and source of farmers' household income. As I mentioned earlier, rice is important for Cambodia, but in Sri Lanka and Pakistan is not that much. But here we can find out the non-farm income is another one very important activity for rice farmers. Then also, it's said when we need to understand the farmers' behavior, we cannot only just focus on rice farming, because farmers' behavior and the farmers' livelihood strategy, it's a whole group. So we have to think about the relationship among them or between them. Then we did a specific important because it can tell us in a given amount of input what's the gap between farmers' production and the best production they can reach. So if farmers are good enough, that means there's not much space to improve. But if not, that means we still can help them even without increase the input, we still can increase the yield. For this analysis, we use the one-stage stochastic frontier analysis regression, and after testing, we choose the Cox production function, and here's our technical efficiency model. The variables we use for the production function, including all the inputs we have, the seeds, fertilizers, pesticide, herbicide, power use, and also the labor. And for the inefficiency, we focus on the age, the education, household size, farm size, the non-farm income, the share of non-farm income. Also introduce the square of non-farm income share. Because for in Sri Lanka, in total, we have 404 households interviewed, but only 30% of them we ask for the detail, that's input-output information. So this analysis, for each household, we ask one big parcel or one of the main parcel. to collect all the detailed information. So actually, this study is only for 120 households, it's not for 400. So you can see the non-farm income share is different from just now we show on the country level. So it's around 52%. But still, not all the farmers depend so heavily on non-farm. So you can see still many farmers, they don't have non-farm income, but also some farmers, they have higher. After the regression, what we got is the technical efficiency mean value is 0.63. So 60, that means farmers' technical efficiency is 63%. That means they still have potential to improve. And also, you can see the distribution is also have farmers are in different level. Then to find out what kind the factors influence or the non-farm also influence the effect of non-farm on farmers' technical efficiency. Then here you can see the farm size is one of the factors, but for non-farm, the share of non-farm income is negative, but the square of share of non-farm income is positive. So that means initially the non-farm income will decrease farmers' technical efficiency, but eventually it will go up. It's a U-shaped ladder. To give a conclusion for this study. So first, rice farmers in Sri Lanka, they are still more market-oriented, non-farm income-oriented. And also there's still potential to improve farmers' practice. So even though we don't need to increase the input. And the third one is the effect of non-farm income is kind of U-shaped effect. Then this is this is the structure of those household income. We can do this kind of survey because for those countries, for Sri Lanka, add a little bit more background. Sri Lanka is a country with 95% of the rice area of its direct seeding. So, and also in Sri Lanka, the paddy field are not allowed to change to other crops without government permission. So that means the rice production in Sri Lanka is really protected by the government also, and then there's very few land resource competition between rice production and other crops. Then, talking about the farm household, and there's gender issues there, of course, whether men or women who play more important role, or what kind of role, how much they can contribute to rice farming, because this also can help us find the targeting. But then for the three countries we have, Pakistan, we don't have any female respondents because of the torture. So we only have Cambodia and Sri Lanka. We have the female respondent. And also we find it interesting, Cambodia is export country. When we say it's a country with good potential to be export. But for Sri Lanka, the farmers are more subsistence. So, and they are different kinds of rice farmers. So we want to compare how those the rice farmers or the women, how they act their role, how they play their role in the rice farming. For this can see the rice income in Cambodia is much higher than Sri Lanka also. But another part is the non-farm income. So non-farm are important for both countries. But from here you can see Sri Lanka, the men contribute much more than women for the non-farm income. But for women, in Cambodia, men and women, they are quite equal. So then talking about the rice farming, then you see for the both seasons, Sri Lanka, the women labor input is much less. And actually, women in Sri Lanka, they mostly involved in the harvesting activity. But in Cambodia, not only the women input more labor, but also the activities are more diverse from the beginning, and then transplanting, harvesting, all these kind of activities. So we calculate we have 16 indicators in total to measure what's the role of to measure women empowerment. That means we rank it from 1 to 5. So if farmer choose 1, means only the husband make the family decision. But if it goes to 5, means only the wife make the decision. So that means if they got higher index and that value, that means women have higher empowerment. So you can say generally the women in Cambodia has higher empowerment compared to Sri Lanka, either in the rice farming decisions or in the income expenditures. Then is what kind of factors have contribute to or influence the women's empowerment in this family? We also did all the OLS regression, and then we found that aside from other factors and the training, because this is the one what we can interview for those farm households, what we can help those women. The training for women, if we can attend, they are significantly influence women's empowerment index. But at the same time, if the husband attend the training, it's negative. To get the key results, so basically from the observation we can see the women farmers in Cambodia, they are involved in more diverse activities in rice farming. They are also contribute more labor for the farming. Of course, they also and also they have the higher women empowerment index. But if in both countries, if we can help women exposed to training, then this also can help to improve the women's empowerment for the rice production. But in Sri Lanka, because non-farm income is much more important compared to Cambodia, so if you can help if we can help the women farmers to involve more in the non-farm activities, this also can help. Based on that, this is the basic analysis we did. Based on all this descriptive analysis, we did the potential impact assessment. Because our, as I mentioned in the very beginning, the GSR varieties in the phase 1 is still not available. So if we need to do the impact assessment, we need to give the assumption. So here we assume that we have 2 periods. The short term, 3 to 5 years. This can be taken as the beginning of technology adoption, and then longer term, 6 to 10 years. So for the potential yield gain, so how much yield can be gained for farmer, we give 10%. This is not for the experiment, this is at farm level. So for farm household, give 10%. And then adoption rate in the 3 to 5 years, because it's in the beginning, so maybe 10% of the of the country or of the rice area can be covered. And in long term, it's 20%. To estimate the rice area can be covered by the improved varieties is very tricky. So we want to have the general idea what are those areas, how can we get bigger impact. So we choose a very simple pragmatic way to do. Through the survey, we estimated the percentage of poor lifted out of poverty by the yield gain. And we take this as a base to put it as in the country level. For the country level, we use the rural poverty ratio and how many rice farmers they have. So we can calculate how many rice farmers or how many poor rice farmers they can be lifted out of poverty by GSR project. And the second indicator is additional people meet their food requirement. We know rice farmers not only contribute to their own consumption. If they can produce more, those poor consumers in the city or low-income consumers in the city also can benefit. So that's the one which we use the target area. So if it goes the 3 to 5 years, it's 10%. If you can cover 10%, and the yield gain to use the price and also divided by the consumption. Sorry. To get the additional people meeting their food requirements based on our assumptions. So this is the result. We can see for those poor rice farmers can be lifted out of poverty. In Cambodia, the impact is much bigger. So they can go to 15 to 30,000 people. These are only poor rice farmers. They can be lifted out. And Sri Lanka and Pakistan is much smaller. But if we go for the additional number of people who can meet their food requirements, then these three countries more or less they contribute very similar, but still quite amount of number. So if in total the three countries within 3 to 5 years, if we can cover 10% of the area, the yield gain can be increased 10%, around 1 million people, we can say more than 1 million people can meet their food requirement. That's the study we did to summarize the result. First, those three countries represent a diverse of rice production environments. And also they have different institutional setup, like Sri Lanka has more rice, more policy protection. And also the technology level is different. Cambodia, the improved variety adoption is much lower. But the three countries, the yield level is very low. So most of them are low, 2 of them are lower than 3 tons per hectare. So especially if it goes to the stress-prone area, the yield could be even lower. So the efforts to develop improved rice varieties that are tolerant to such stresses, that's very important. So the stress includes either drought, submergency, and salinity. We draw the implications from based on our study. First, for the germ plus development strategy. In the survey, we also noticed green quality has been mentioned and emphasized by the farmers a lot. And so, not only farmer wants the variety with high yield, but also specific green quality requirement. And the second is for the mega varieties. We see that in the countries, 1 or 2 varieties account 60%, even 70% of the rice area. So compared to those mega varieties, it's very difficult to introduce a completely new variety to those countries. So rather than that, maybe an option is the breeding strategy may build on the existing materials, so including some additional treats. Then also this can cover both. We bring additional treats, but also meet farmers' demand. This could be maybe can facilitate the dissemination. And then for the targeting, we need to find out what are those areas, what are those people. To contribute to the poverty reduction, then we need to find out those countries with high intensity of poverty. So where are those poor people are, where are those poor rice farmers? And in this case, those countries with high incidence of poverty should be given priority. The second, for what kind of rice farmers? The rice farmers, they have basically have 2, or the more self-consumed or more market-oriented. But we can put them together. Use one is the share of rice income. So if rice accounts for the large share of the total income, those farmers are easy to be motivated, and also the incremental income could be higher to get that one. And the third one for the training, because we mentioned to provide, like Cambodia, because women farmers, they are more involved in the rice activities, and also they are empowered to some extent. So if to help them to contribute more to the rice farming, then to provide a training on women farmers could be helpful. And the last, for the dissemination, in the survey we found out access to the quality seeds is one of the limits. And also, through the varieties adopted by farmers, you can see they are quite old, more than 20 years. Now, how to facilitate how to short the time from breeders to rice farmers, that's another issue. So maybe we can introduce, we should do more investment in extension, or to include more local agencies and NGOs to help to facilitate the seed dissemination. Thank you.
Thank you, Huaiyu. So the floor now is open for questions. Who would like to throw the first question? Yes, okay.
Sorry for my ignorance, but when you said green super rice, does it include varieties released in 1990s? or earlier? Because in the table that you presented, though varieties adapted were those released in 1990, 1971. Are those already green superized?
No. The varieties released in 1990s, that's for the Green Revolution one. And now they think for that Green Revolution, the varieties mostly focus on the irrigated area. But recently, more stress tolerant and also high yielding and the climate issues, the climate changes. So these are more like the more challenging. And also you can say we choose the areas more stress-prone area, not to go for the very good, the areas with very good irrigation.
So can you then use that for the ex-ante impact assessment? Those data that you collected?
Well, it's true, and we did ex-ante. I said it's actually very tricky, but at least we need to have the idea to figure out how much impact we can contribute. Because until the variety available and the variety groomed by the farmers, we can do the actual impact assessment. But that could be 5 years later or 6 years later. But now we need to evaluate whether the work is worth to invest in and how can we facilitate the first progress. So I think that's, as I mentioned, it's a very simple way. But if now JSR is in phase 2, and also I'm not sure, maybe there could be phase 3. If they could do more, follow up the seeds dissemination, if they can get the actual data, I think that would be more. I'm sure the impact assessment will be modified later. But now it's just give us the idea.
Yeah, because it's different when you talk of GSR and then the modern varieties, the first and second generation modern varieties as a whole. So it's really very hard to use it for the ex-ante impact assessment. I don't know. I don't know if you get what.
Yeah. I got the point because I would say if we put this and stress prone to the national, that may be tricky. Yeah. But if we say because GSR is, as I mentioned, it's a definition for the breeding program. It's a direction. It's not only talk about one varieties. Yeah. So if we say the stress-prone area can gain 10%, we can have such kind of impact. And I think that's also very exciting if they cover also irrigated area. But I think irrigated area actually including GSR.
Yeah, but beforehand, can I follow up that question? If you can go to that model that Pi is looking at, then sorry. The probit model.
Adoption?
Yeah, the adoption. Then we can go back.
This one?
Yeah. So that is farm size. Is that the first one? The previous one?
This is description.
Okay. No. The second. Okay. So that your modern variety adoption is not really the GSR.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
GSR right now is not.
Yeah, because it's still in the first phase.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, if I understand it rightly, that your respondents come from stress-prone areas.
Yeah.
But after that, you mentioned in your conclusion that the adoption in stress-prone areas is patchy, but
yes.
But the adoption rate there is high. What's the percentage, the adoption there of the modern variety?
In Cambodia, 40% in a survey.
Yes, but you mentioned that it is patchy.
Patchy means
it has low adoption or still high adoption?
Does not mean, because
it's scattered. Yeah.
It's farmers have different kind of. We call it all of them a lowland rice. But some farmers say this is lower field, so we take it as lower field here. And also, they have the middle field here. So we know that's still lowland, but they still somehow have different. Farmer, we have different adoption behavior for this kind of field.
So you target only to those stress-prone areas?
But they are the same area.
Yeah, not including the favorable areas.
No, for this one, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So why do you think it is patchy?
But it's that's some of the result I did not show here. The pattern is mostly in like Cambodia because they have the lower, middle, and the upper.
So it only refers to Cambodia.
Not only, but in in Pakistan, it's they also have, but not so much because in Pakistan and in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is 98% included already, so it's not patronage. When we talk about patronage, it's modern variety and the traditional variety.
So the combined.
Yes.
Okay. I'm more confused. Yes, please.
Dr. Wang, thanks for the wonderful presentation. I will be just adding more information to the audience here. The GSR basically is now in the second phase, entering the second phase. So the adoption pattern of the GSR is just from it is mostly nominated into the national trials, including in the Philippines. So the next stage will be that they just go to the farmer's field, and the moment it is released in all the kinds of, it includes irrigated, it includes drought, upland, even parts of upland. So it almost occupies all the places, salinity, submergence, drought, irrigated. So we have, in all the cases, we have the varieties nominated, even in the Philippines specifically. But in the case of Cambodia and Pakistan have already nominated 2 of them. In Sri Lanka, 2 of them has been nominated. So possibly these will be released soon. But the question here is, what Wang has done here is basically keeping a presumption that suppose we get 10% increase by the adoption of the GSR varieties over the existing varieties in that given location, then what will be the scenario? So that is the basis of that basically. So ultimately, when we get the new varieties on the ground, if it gives 10%, then that thing will be proven true. But if not, then we go back 5% lower, or I don't know where we end up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very brave.
Thank you.
But I imagine that adoption rates will vary by the current status of the farmer in terms of income and wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I imagine that better off farmers will adopt faster than less better off farmers. Is that correct?
Well, partially.
Yeah. So you're saying that you're going to get improvements in income for poorer farmers over just a 3-year period.
We said for those rice farmers, for the farmers who has higher rice income share.
Yes. Isn't that a bit short?
Well, it's a challenge. We say that's 3 to 5 years. But, well, I personally would think if 10% within 5 years may not that big, because actually right now the base is quite low. So 10% may not that high. Maybe another 10%, so after one 10%, the second 10% would be more challenging.
Also, when you say that X number of farmers will be lifted out of poverty within that 3-year period, that's a bit heroic in the sense that you're going to get better of farmers adopting faster over a shorter period of time, but you're looking at poverty impacts right away.
Now, actually, when we calculated the percentage of poor farmers lifted out of poverty, we choose those farmers who are whose daily income is lower than the poverty line, and then plus those 10% yield gain, the income, and then to put that extra income to add this current income, whether they can more to be above the poverty line. That's how we calculate it. We're not going for the higher.
Oh, okay. Motele.
This
sorry.
project is up to 10 years actually, so there is a lot of room for that.
Right.
So this is the only 3 years ending, so it's moving to the second phase, and then it has a third phase. So it goes up to 10 years.
Maybe we can double check after the phase 2. That's 6 years.
Yeah, thanks. Nice presentation. I have a very specific question about this model.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that in Cambodia, 40% income is coming from non-farm sector.
Yes.
And to my understanding, Cambodia and Bangladesh are two of the most dynamic developing countries in the world, where non-farm sector is really contributing more. And Cambodia is one of the topmost garment exporters, is maybe top 20. So if this is the case, then I think the farm size, the variable farm sector is increasing to some extent, because people are leaving farm sector, going to non-farm sector. This means there's actually rural land market. Some people are renting, some people are renting out, some people are buying the land. So your farm size is maybe better if you check whether it's in the
Well, I agree with your point, but it also depends on what kind of samples you have. For those farmers we have, if it goes to if you check the rice income, and then you can see if you just look at the income, you can see that's very simple. It's only non-farm and the rice income, two part of it are main. And also we found those rice farmers in Cambodia, they have very few other crops or animal sale. And through the family division, you can find the non-farm income also 50 to 50%. But also, when I did my field visit, I found out when we want to organize the meeting, more women are coming, and women are more stay at home more to take care of the rice farming. So that's the activities are also more diverse. I agree that there could be some competition between those non-farm and rice,
So
but also the farm size. But I think that's more dynamic. But we are doing the cross-sectional regression.
Better, that's why there might be some industry problem. You better check. There are very simple statistics to check this one. I have another question actually about the women empowerment equation. It's really nice, but I think you did not include husband's characteristics. There's a schooling of the husband in the model, and that's why maybe the training variable is negative and significant. So better if you include that one. Schooling.
Well,
and
actually we did, but for if just based on the descriptive, we did not see much significant difference between men and women in these countries. And also across the regions, there's also very few variation. I myself do not take as a big problem, personally.
Yes, Kate. Sorry.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I don't know how to use the mic. Can you go down to the slide where you have Women Empowerment Index?
Yeah. This one? Is this one?
Yeah. So what I'm wondering about is in these countries, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, where you did your survey, is it that every household had a man and a woman, a husband and a
Yes.
wife? Every household?
Yeah, if they don't have husband or don't have wife, we delete them.
Okay.
Okay, just to follow up on the same thing, can you elaborate a little bit more on the finding of the training, where participation of the male in training is positively related to the Women Empowerment Index, but for the lady negatively? How do you explain that?
Well, personally, I would think this could be related to how the family decision was made. Because like here, actually, if it goes to 1, that means only husband did the family decision without any consultation with the wife. So if it goes to 5, that means the wife make a decision without any consultation to the husband. So if we, between the middle, if it goes to 1 to 3, that means they think husband and wife equally make the decision. So then if, let's say, if both a man and a woman attend the same training, they may have different understanding. then if they have different understanding, they have different opinion for how to implement what they got from their training, who should play more role or who be the one dominate the decision? I think that's to save the case.
Is it not related with the economic prosperity in the household? If the economic prosperity is more, then the men will take the decision.
I think that's
when it is
yes, right.
more poverty situation, the decision is taken by the women.
Okay,
That's very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for that presentation. I have two questions. First, about your implications at the end of this presentation. Among them, the first one, I think you mentioned quality, grain quality, and at last, the access to information or extension.
Yeah.
From which result those implication comes from?
The grain quality is. I think I have this right here. Okay. I did not show this, but we have more detailed information for this one. This is from the survey. I did not present this one because time limit. So you can say for the green quality, also the eating quality, farmers pay more and more attention on that one. So it's not only for yield. If C, that's the yield, but also farmer emphasize the green quality.
About the extension?
The extension for the extension to the seeds, there are two ways. One is when we look at the varieties they adopt, it's really old, and Sri Lanka, Pakistan, it's IRRI-6 still use it, which was released in 1971. Sri Lanka is 1987. Even though from Sri Lanka government, we get the information is they replace the seeds 20% every year. But goes to the farmers actually at national level, Sri Lanka BG 300 accounts only for 20%, less than 20% of the national rice area. But in our survey, it goes for 60%, so that's quite high. So from this kind of, also when we talk to farmers, they would see how to access to this information is one of the limitation. I don't have quite exactly the data like this to prove that, but from different sources, we think this is one of the way.
Yeah, but because you include that as the conclusion, it has very strong message. If data or some very strong evidence doesn't solve, you don't have, it's better not mentioned in the conclusion.
Yeah, thank you.
And my second question is a bit more specific. In your efficiency analysis, I find that the larger farm is more efficient. And that is actually in Asia, most of the Asian countries, usually the smaller, the more efficient in rice cultivation. So I'm quite surprised. And so what do you think the
larger size more inefficient?
Inefficient.
Yeah.
Oh, positive means okay.
Yeah, positive is inefficient.
Thank you.
Yes, Doctor.
If the women in Cambodia have higher empowerment index, if they say grain quality is more important than yield, we communicate that to the plant breeders. Then the women are less prone to migrate.
Yeah.
Then if you train these women who are already more empowered, and you get them good eating quality rice, then you can guarantee they will get out of poverty in 3 years. So you better communicate to the plant breeder what the women want.
Yeah, plant breeders mostly are
Yes.
men.
I'm really quite serious about this. This could be the study whose follow-up made the difference.
Yeah, sure. And well, a little bit comment for that one. During my field trip in Cambodia, and actually I found women is more active, and they can talk and communicate with the breeders, the local breeders, and also the local government officers what they want, what's their problem. And then I learned from the local government officer for those villages we visited. Actually, they have been training women for some time already. So then I think it takes time for two sides to do the communicate, to do the communication, and but how to facilitate this? Maybe how you can comment.
I see a big potential.
Yes, yes.
Okay, let me take you to the Philippines rather than Cambodia. We have initiated a very important experiment during this season, wet season, in Laguna region. With I think 86 households, we are giving the aromatic GSR variety, pre-release variety, which will be given to all the 86 people, and it will be tested against what they prefer, their most important characteristic. They will be taking the study. So that study is also being conducted by Dr. Wang, and we are hoping that these results will also open up
But
soon. By the end
Filipino
of
women migrate. They will do rice production.
they leave a second generation there.
Okay. Huaiyu, can I ask two questions?
Sure.
Yeah. The first one in the factors for adoption. The first one, the other model. Yeah, the share of lower field. So that means the higher the share or the higher lower fields you have, the more the adoption of the modern varieties, right? And you are focusing on the stress-prone environments. So you mean that those flood-prone environments are more adapting the modern variety?
No, actually, I think if we got some implication from this result, that means if we can help those stress-prone areas, for example, like the infrastructure side, if they can have the better lower field with good irrigation, then this could help them to help those farmers adopt those improved varieties.
But these are also flood-prone environments because you are focusing on the stress-prone.
Yeah.
So that, okay, so the higher the field has lower adoption, lower influence to adoption of modern varieties. That means because the share of a lower field is more likely to adopt the variety, the modern variety.
Yeah.
So do you have drought-prone resistant varieties included
Sorry,
here?
for those one, we have 3: drought, submergence, and salinity. 3 of them.
So drought, and
submergence, and salinity.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those in submergence and
yes, drought and salinity. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, please.
Dr. Castillo's question reminds us that there are very, very important social, cultural differences among the 3 countries.
Yes.
Cambodia, recently out of war, the demographic characteristics of the population are very different. Many men died. Most of the workers are women, and while most extension workers are overwhelmingly men. Difference here in the Philippines, most extension workers are overwhelmingly women. Pakistan, women's work is very, very different. And
we actually don't have any female respondent from Pakistan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do you account for this in the adoption rates, if any?
Well, actually, if I'm not sure whether I don't have that data here, but when we calculated the demographic characteristics for those respondents in Cambodia and Sri Lanka, the respondents are over 40 years old. So, and this for the gender analysis, we include those with both husband and wife. And also they are over 40 years old. And yes, in Cambodia, the participation of the female respondents are higher than Sri Lanka, but that's true. And also, Cambodia is a Southeast Asia country, and Sri Lanka is a South Asia country. The culture also could be different. But from here, when we did this study, we want to show that don't look at from the culture side. We would like to look at more the marketing-oriented farmers and the subsistence farmer sides to look at it. Yeah, I agree that this result could be biased because of the culture issue.
Yes, definitely. I disagree that we will not look at the culture side. It has a big say on farmer adoption. Yes. Yes.
About the Women Empowerment Index, is there any threshold or critical value above or below which we can categorize a household family of being empowered or not? Suppose you have to find an index, but what's the threshold value to categorize?
Yeah,
which
that's
one is empowered, which one is not?
Well, from my point, I would say for the gender issue analysis or gender study, it's more subjective compared to other studies. Because first, how could you see for two households, if one farmer said, okay, the husband interviewed and said, yeah, I will consult it with my wife. But to what kind of extent? We only have five categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sure that's not enough to measure this real situation. But I think for this kind of study, the good thing, the basic is just try to move a little bit ahead and to try to do something can give us some idea whether this, for example, the training can help it or not. If yes, because training is something we can do. To change the culture is something we cannot do. I just think this can help us to get some idea.
Okay.
It almost sounds like you're doing two very different studies at the same time.
Well, actually,
I'm getting it confused.
Before I do think maybe I should take the adoption study, the non-farm and technical efficiency, and the gender study. These three are specific issues study. The study came out because based on our basic discrete analysis finished for 3 countries, when we compare those results and we find out some interesting topic, we would like to go a little bit further to get the study. So yes, to some extent they are separate. But all of them based on the descriptive. If without that one, without observation, we cannot have the idea to have this topic.
Okay, we would like to thank Huaiyu. We are having overtime. It was very interesting.